Hello, foodies, gourmands, trenchermen. What do we have going on here? Well, we just got back from a little trip, and we had already decided we were going to have some Huevos Rancheros for dinner tonight, but Michelle had Huevos at a restaurant for breakfast yesterday morning, and it was, as usual, not quite up to snuff, she didn't think. And it occurred to us that maybe I ought to share my recipe for Huevos Rancheros, as withholding it might be kind of akin to withholding the cure for cancer. I don't know, you tell me, hon, how's my Huevos?
Awesome.
Thanks. She has to say that because I'm sitting here, and I threatened to beat the hell out of her if she didn't, so.
That's a lot.
Also, I uploaded a sailing video this morning, so I'm kind of throwing a bone to the barbecue guys, because this does kind of involve or include some barbecue. So anyway, eaten a lot of Huevos over the years, and I've just I kind of developed my own recipe that met my tastes, and all of our friends and family who've had it think it's the greatest thing in the world. I can't say that mine's better than anybody else's, but I've certainly never had better than my own. So when I started doing barbecue a few years ago, we'd always have, when we did brisket, quite a bit of brisket left over, and I had trouble figuring out what to do with that. And it finally occurred to me that why not process that down into to meat for not only Huevos Rancheros, but enchiladas, burritos, chili, that sort of stuff. So you don't have to use brisket for this. You can use ground beef. It's what I always did before. I'd do a large batch of it using just some plain old taco seasoning. Hot and spicy. Has to be hot and spicy. And if I'm using ground beef, I also would doctor it with some minced onions and some MSG. Yeah, I know you're not supposed to use MSG, but I do. I even put this on my popcorn. And also some cayenne pepper. We buy institutional size bottles of this. A bottle like this lasts us about a week. Okay, I'm exaggerating a little bit. We probably get 2 or 3 weeks out of a bottle this size. So the other ingredients you're going to need for this recipe are chili beans, hot, not mild or anything like that. These happen to be Cuners. It's my favorite brand. It's a Colorado brand distributed from out of Minnesota, I think. Don't ask me how that works. And some of this stuff is almost certainly going to be regional. May not have access to it. I used to use a green chili sauce made by Bueno. We couldn't get it locally here anymore, so I had to kind of experiment with some other brands. We usually buy a couple of bushels of extra hot green chilies when they're in season, freshly roasted green chilies, and but I've just never gotten around to developing a recipe, and who am I to come up with a recipe when these guys are trying to sell stuff? So what I found a number of years ago as a replacement to our favorite brand was a mixture of this stuff. This is Old Gringo Chili Company. Gourmet green chili sauce. Hot. It has to be hot. Mild is for babies, medium is for sissies, and hot is for men who love women and women who love men. I also use El Pinto. This stuff is out of Albuquerque. Green chili sauce. They have a restaurant down there. I've never eaten there before, but also hot, essential, has to be hot. This place is out of Las Cruces, so I imagine you can buy this stuff online if you wanted to get it. Now what I do is I do an even mix of this. I'm going to pour half of this jar into an empty jar, and then the other half. This is going to yield 4 servings. Since it's just the two of us, we'll get half of it tonight, and the rest will end up in this jar here and go in the fridge for next time. So. The other ingredient is just a couple of slices of onion chopped up. I like potatoes with mine. It's too much food for Michelle, so that's just for me. Just some flour enchilada tortillas, 2 of those, of course. And I toast these on the stove top, and I'll get to that here in a minute. So Huevos, of course, eggs. Some sharp cheddar cheese, that's my personal preference. Use whatever you want, but that's pretty good stuff. And just butter for frying the eggs and the potatoes and that sort of stuff in. So, and then of course our brisket meat. So what I do with the brisket meat is I render that. I just warm it up and separate as much of the meat from the fat, gristle, and everything else as I possibly can, and then just use an appropriate amount of the taco seasoning for the quantity of meat I have, and then of course doctor it with a heck of a lot of cayenne. Don't use this stuff if I'm using brisket, so it doesn't need it. I don't want to cover up that smoky flavor. Likewise, if I'm using ground beef, I use lean ground beef, and I haven't done that for years because we've been using brisket, but if I were to use ground beef, it would be lean ground beef, and I'd put a fair amount of water in it and let it simmer for quite a while so it kind of marinates really well. Just the opposite with the brisket. I put just a minimum amount of water in there. I don't want to cook off any of that smoky flavor. So I just enough to mate the seasoning with the meat and call it a day. If I know I'm going to be doing chili or anything like that, I generally don't season that because the chili has plenty of seasonings in it. So, but even the seasoned meat can be used for chili. So let me clear up this mess a little bit here, and we'll move on to the next steps. This also is very easy and it goes very quickly. So probably the most time-consuming thing is toasting the tortillas. Once that's done, it goes pretty fast. So here are the cooking utensils for this. Butter knife for cutting butter. Fork, I use this for smoothing the tortilla and picking it up off the burner. Also for stirring the hash browns. The tablespoon just for handling the beans and the meat and that kind of stuff, and an iced teaspoon for stirring up my green chili sauce. You can use whatever you want. This is how I do it. Okay, so you can see I've emptied half of this jar into this jar, that jar, and then half of this jar is going to go in this jar and the rest in this jar. Okay, so you can see I've emptied the contents of this jar into this jar and this jar evenly. Lid's going back on this jar. That's going in the refrigerator for next time. This is going to go in the microwave. I'm going to start at about 2 minutes and then incrementally stir it up, then incrementally lower the time, a minute the next time, then maybe about 45 seconds. Then 30 seconds. You know how to heat stuff in a microwave. This isn't rocket science. So, but depending on your microwave, you will probably want to put a paper towel over the top of this. Our microwave here doesn't spatter stuff all over the place, but we do have another microwave that will make the microwave a little messy if you don't cover it. Got it good? Mm-hmm. All right. Okay, so I've got this burner on about medium heat, a little below medium, and I'm just heating up this tortilla to a point where it won't stick anymore. If I lay it down flat, it'll certainly stick to the burner. You can do this in a pan, but I do it right on the burner. Obviously, if you have a range with coiled elements on it or a gas burning stove, you'd have to do this in a pan, but I find it easier to do it this way. So yep, let's get in there. So I toast these for two reasons. A, I like the flavor of the toasted tortilla. B, as we progress here, we're going to be getting some liquid on this, and it would get pretty soggy pretty quickly if it didn't get crisped up a little bit. So, and then as this gets hotter, this is going to start to blister a little bit, so I just use the fork to both get underneath the tortilla and also keep the tortilla laying flat on the hot surface. And this stovetop is clean, of course. And that's the green chili sauce going off in the microwave. I'm going to go shut that off. And this is going to boil down to personal preference, but I like mine kind of crispy, so. How do you like yours, hon?
Crispy.
Crispy.
Careful.
Okay, as I say, this is probably the most time-consuming part of this whole process. Getting the tortillas toasted. That one's looking pretty good. That burner's getting hotter, it's going to be a little less apt to stick. That's looking pretty good. And I'm just going to leave that burner on for the hash browns. Okay, so now that I have the tortillas toasted, I'm going to put down a layer of meat. Okay, so we got some brisket on the tortilla, and if you can see a tortilla, in my practiced opinion, you don't have enough meat on there. Next comes the beans, but for a matter of timing, now the potatoes are going to go on. Again, they're just for me. I like a little potato on the side. It's too much food for Michelle. And then we'll get the beans on, so we'll see you in a minute. Okay, so the potatoes are on and dosed amply with some cayenne. Beans come next. Okay, so on go the beans, and I've drained about half the gravy off, depending on the can of beans. They have a little more than, a little more gravy, that is. Sometimes it's thicker, sometimes it's thinner, so you just kind of have to judge it. And again, it's personal taste, but see, the gravy that the beans are packed in is pretty good stuff. And although this is typically a breakfast dish, we're having it for Brenner tonight. It's good for either. I guess it depends on what time of the day you like your flatulence to kick in. Okay, what comes next is these go in the microwave for 3 minutes. I'm going to do one at a time. The oven over here is already preheated at 250 degrees. And once each of these comes out of the microwave, they're going to get the onion treatment, some cheese, and then they'll go in the oven. So the beautiful part about this dish is, except for the potatoes, if you do them, and the eggs, everything gets done in the microwave. And once you get to this point, it goes fast. Okay, so that's plate one out of the microwave again for 3 minutes. I'm just going to onion that up. See how much I can get on the floor. I don't nuke that because I like the onions to be nice and crisp and flavorful. And then some cheese liberally applied. It's probably a bit much. That's good enough. Now that's going to go into the 250 degree oven to get the cheese a little melty and keep everything warm. Time to stir the hash browns. Turn on the fan here. I hope that doesn't make too much noise. This is KitchenAid appliance. They're KitchenAid. These were in the house when we bought them. Making a mess. Okay, wash, rinse, repeat. Oh my God, that smoked brisket smells so good. It makes all the difference in this dish. I mean, it was really good before. I was just using ground beef, but the brisket makes it excellent. I've also used smoked chuck roast, and it's also good, but it's kind of a pain in the ass to render, so the brisket is just easier to deal with. One egg done. Flip the HBs. Isn't that better? Okay, now these are ready to sauce, but I got one important thing to do here. This is for the health conscious. Since I fried the eggs in butter, I always pat the excess butter off. And that makes this meal totally healthy. In fact, I don't think that probably The caloric content is probably even tips 100 calories at this point, thanks to removing that butter. So this is totally healthy. There we go. You better not be getting me in there, otherwise it's going to get edited out.
I did my best to keep you just in the shadows.
That's hot. Oh, Huevos Rancheros. Oh.
Yummy, yummy.
All right, that's it. Ready to go. Oh my God. That's awful.
Oh, stop. Best ever.
I love this stuff. So long, guys. Hope you enjoyed it.